Councillor Cave, you've just come on screen for. Is there a reason? Apparently not. But Amy, if you could welcome everyone to the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee on Tuesday, the 8th of October 2024 at 5 p.m. Amy, if you could do housekeeping, please.
Yes, Chair. So may I remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and that this recording will be archived for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand via the remote raise hand function? And when invited to address by the chair, who this evening will be the Vice Chair, Councillor Neil Thomas, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. Thank you, Chair. That concludes the housekeeping.
Thank you, Amy. Right, moving through the agenda. First item under part 1 is apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chair, apologies have been received to myself from Councillor Charles as Chair and Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. Item 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September 2024. Can we agree this is the most correct record? I see no dissent. Councillor Selby.
Just to say, happy to propose or second, Vice Chair.
Okay, if you move, I'll second. Thank you very much for that. Item 3, to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interests, including whipping under the Council's Code of Conduct. Any declarations of interest, please? I see none. Moving on then, we come to item 4 on the agenda, which is the update on the Healthy Living and Social Care Scrutiny Committee Leisure Centre Working Group verbal update. I think that would have been for Janice, for the chair, but as she's not with us and can't do it, I was at the last Leisure Centre Working Group meeting at Penarth Leisure Centre, where we looked at the progress of the work that's being done down there, particularly to the roof and to the installation of solar panels on the roof. It was pleasing to see that it's not only coming in on time, it's coming in under budget, not by a great deal, but certainly under budget. And the progress is really, really good. Dave, you have your hand up. You wanted to comment.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. I wondered if you just wanted me to give an overview of the minutes of the visit. I wanted to thank those members that obviously took the time to attend the visit. As you quite rightly state, the main purpose was to look at the completion of the roof works at Penarth, which have cost approximately £1.2 million. To give the good news that we were able to secure, in partnership with Legacy Leisure, which wasn't in the original scheme, the installation now of 104 PV panels, which obviously will have ongoing benefits both to the council and to Legacy Leisure. I also wanted to give thanks to colleagues in property in terms of what you have already stated in terms of a job well done, on time and basically on budget. And also further thanks to Legacy Leisure, and one of the benefits in working in partnership with them has been the customer disruption has been kept to a minimum during works, as they were able to transfer some customers to use the facility that they also operate across in Cardiff at the International Pool. And this also had a positive effect in terms of reducing a possible claim in terms of loss of income that Legacy would have been entitled to, but haven't claimed up to the full amount. So we are grateful for that as well. Overall, we've got a leisure centre that's now fit for purpose for the next, hopefully 20 plus years, that is obviously well used by a variety of customers, as members will have observed on the visit. And just basically, again, thank you for those that were able to attend.
Yep, I echo that. What Dave hasn't mentioned is the progress in membership there and usage, which is fell off obviously during COVID and has now improved again, and is heading in a pleasing direction very rapidly. Lots more people are starting to join down there and are using the facilities. So it's a good news story all round, especially when you consider that the contract, which has been in place for many years now, is one which is beneficial to the council rather than being a drain on the council, as many other local authorities are finding, and it's something which we can be proud of. So thank you for that, Dave. Are there any questions or comments, please, on this update? I see no comments, no questions. We'll move on then to the agenda item 5, which is the Deprivation of Liberty Standards Team annual update. Who's taking this?
Hi, yeah, it's me, Natasha James.
Natasha. Okay, go ahead, Natasha, please.
Evening, everyone. This is the annual DOLS update report to come to Scrutiny Committee. It provides an overview and summary of the performance and activity of the DOLS team. For those of you that have been involved previously and heard this annual report previously, the DOLS team in the Vale hosts the supervisory responsibilities for Vale of Glamorgan, Cardiff Council and Cardiff and Vale Health Board. So this update provides a summary of activity that has undertaken throughout this year, and there's two recommendations that the Scrutiny Committee continues to receive information about safeguarding those individuals with the continued implications of Cheshire West, and that the report is referred to Audit Committee for their consideration. You will see that referenced in this report as some of the activity that's happened throughout this year is we've had a kind of business and process review throughout the year. As a consequence, we've had some changes in structure, which means we have a new team manager within that service, and we've increased the capacity within our business support function and within our best interest assessors. Funding for that comes across the three parties, so that's via Cardiff Council, via the Health Board and via Vale of Glamorgan at an agreed percentage split. There's information in the report just detailing the numbers of applications that we've received this year, the numbers that we've been able to assess and subsequently authorise, and then there's some information around just the types of scenarios where applications are withdrawn and some detail and numbers about those things. Of note is that we continue to receive Welsh Government funding to address backlog. As many of you may be aware, this continues to be an area that our capacity to meet demand is always stretched, and we never are able to meet that demand, but we've had some positive impact by increasing our ability through the funding to lower backlogs and the numbers of applications that are waiting for authorisation and assessment. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments in relation to the report.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you to officers for a very comprehensive written report that we have in our papers. I see, Councillor Starlard, you have your hand up first.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I was pleased to see the backlog coming down over the years, so that's positive. I was just a bit curious about the references to the indefinite postponement of the new framework, the Liberty Protection Safeguards framework, and I was just wondering, what the impact of this not having happened was, or whether there was any impact, and whether this was likely to happen, and whether it was difficult for you to have to to plan, not knowing when the new framework was coming in. So I was just curious, really.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the position is that they are postponed indefinitely, and I think with the change in leadership in the government, I don't think that this is a priority on the agenda at the moment. However, within Welsh Government, what's happening is some of the elements of the new framework that would have impacted on individuals not receiving numerous assessments, because currently assessments and authorisations can only be granted up to a maximum of 12 months. So at the end of that 12-month period, a new application has to be submitted and a new authorisation has to be. The Liberty Protection Framework made arrangements that actually you could undertake assessment and authorise for a period of up to 3 years, which is right and proper in some circumstances. So there are working groups within Welsh Government that's got lots of stakeholders to take away some of the key benefits that the framework, the new legislative framework would have provided, and see how we can enact that really under the current codes of practice. So that's the answer. And I think the second one, yes, I suppose there was lots of planning, there was lots of what the operating model of this team would look like if we were taking all of the new framework into place. However, I think some of the positive things that have happened has enabled us to look at our operating model, create some efficiency where we think we can. So it hasn't been a wasted effort, if you like. It's really helped us to kind of look at our efficiencies, streamline some of our processes. So yes, in answer to your question, we've been able to take some things away from the work that we were doing. It wasn't wasted.
Okay.
Yeah. Happy with that, Caris, or do you have a follow-up? Or
Yeah. No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, in that case, Councillor Lloyd Selby, your hand is up next. Sorry,
thank you. Thank you, and thank you for taking us through the report. My question's also related to the backlog of applications, and it clearly is a positive thing to see that those are reducing. But it would be helpful to understand what the potential implications are for individuals for whom an application has been made and we're not able perhaps to respond to that in a timely manner. So what are the potential implications and how are they mitigated? Thank you.
Okay, so the implications are that a person is being deprived of their liberty and there is no legal framework that is supporting that. So example being somebody in a residential care home who a DOLS application has been made for isn't able to come and go and leave freely because part of the application of the DOLS application is saying that this person needs continuous supervision and control. That's one of the elements that is considered. So where in essence they are illegally having restrictions on their welfare and they're coming and going. So that's the implication. The mitigations are that there's very good communication with all of the managing authorities if there were situations that needed to be escalated and we had to reprioritise our prioritisation, if you like. They're all considered against an ADSS prioritisation matrix. So when they come in, there's elements that we prioritise against, which is a national prioritisation tool. But on top of that, if circumstances were to change significantly, we also, the individual also has the right to request a Part 8 review, and they will have an RPR. So there are some things that delays putting in place, but there are levels of mitigation that we can put in place. But the predominant one is that that person is illegally being deprived of their liberty.
Councillor Lloyd Selby, you have a follow-up?
Yes, please, if I may. So given that individuals are illegally deprived of their liberty, apart from the consequences for them Because I imagine there may be a risk that for some people that isn't appropriate action. It sounds to me as though there must be implications for us as a council as well, in terms of risk of challenge being taken against us if we are illegally depriving people of their liberty. So how is that worked through?
So, yeah, absolutely. So that somebody can challenge the local authority on that basis, or the supervisory body. So yes, as a council, as a local authority. And equally, they would do that for Cardiff, or they would do that with the health board. So that is worked through legal representation if that happens. We haven't had a challenge in that way within the Vale of Glamorgan that I'm aware of. Across the UK and nationally, there have been challenges that have been raised. I think the challenge is, isn't it, that we receive applications and we provide authorisations, or not, because we don't authorise every application that's made in as a timely a way as we possibly can. But what's always been the challenge is the number of applications far outstretch the demand that we have. So we have to be able to keep very good communication, have open dialogue. If somebody is objecting and they are verbally objecting to being with the deprivations that are in place or within the setting that they are in, that will be raised. And those that are objecting, we try and prioritise those applications as well. So, and there are legal arrangements that can be accessed as well for those circumstances.
Susan, you want to?
Sorry, yeah, if I may, sorry, Chair. So two other, I think one question and one request, if I may. The question would be for those individuals where it's determined that they should be deprived of their liberty. Do they have access to independent advocacy support? And is that something which is offered to people as a matter of routine? You made reference, obviously, to legal advocacy. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those individuals who may not have family members who can advocate for them in those circumstances. So is there anyone that's able to do that? And then a request, I think, that when the report comes before us again as part of the Forward Work Programme, it would be helpful to understand more about the circumstances under which applications are made. What's the profile of individuals for whom applications are made? So are we talking predominantly about older people with dementia, for example, living in care homes? Are we talking about younger people experiencing mental health challenges? I think it would be helpful for us as a scrutiny to understand more of how the process works and who's impacted. But as I say, my question is around access to independent advocacy.
Okay. Might do it back to Fred. So the request actually, just to remind people that what the cohort of individuals that we are talking about are people who lack capacity. So that is who that is applied to. So the steps within the authorisation has to, a capacity assessment is undertaken, there's a mental health criteria that has to be taken, there's a best interest assessment that has to be taken. So I think maybe providing an overview of the cohort are those cohort, and it applies to under 16. There's arrangements for deprivation of liberty between 16 and 18, and then 18 plus. They would people who appear to lack capacity to consent to their care, support, and accommodation needs. So I'll strengthen that within the report so that it's a bit clearer for you to understand who the cohort of people are. And then in terms of advocacy, so part of the Code of Practice requirement is that every person where there is an authorisation has the right to an RPR, which is a representative person for that individual. They have to be independent, and they have to be independent of the decisions that have been taken that has led up to an individual being in a particular setting. So, for instance, if family members may want to be an individual's representative, but actually they may not be able to be independent of the decisions. So we have, independent advocacy services that come in. They're called RPR services, and they have that person allocated, and they challenge on behalf of that individual, and often do as well. So they support them through any legal challenge or Part 8 reviews. And if you like, I can put a bit more information in future reports about RPR services.
Thank you, Natasha. That's really reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Anecdotally, when I was working with people with learning disabilities who were part of the scheme the government brought in back in the late 80s, early 90s, care in the community, there was we were working with an organisation called People's Voice, who were an advocacy group for these people with learning difficulties who were now living in community settings with support from care workers, and we found that they were very keen to make sure that all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed to make sure that their rights were protected. Councillor Godfrey, you have your hand up now.
Yes, Vice Chair. I would just like to add that, as was pointed out in the presentation, which I thank the lady for, it was made quite clear that to date doesn't appear to have been any complaints or any claims raised against Avayler Glamorgan. And I think, again, that must be due to, as again she intimated, that there is a clear and concise procedure in place, which is obviously working.
Thank you for that, Russell. Yeah, I agree. I think that is clear in this. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee, please? I see none. In that case, Natasha, thank you very much for your presentation, and I think the lack of questions indicates the clarity of your report and how well that's been presented. And thank you very much on behalf of everyone.
Thank you.
If I may, Chair, just to confirm, there are 2 recommendations on the table.
Oh, sorry. I apologise. Yes, there are. If I can find them. Right, the 2 recommendations are: the Scrutiny Committee considers the continued implications of the Cheshire West judgment in respect of arrangements for safeguarding adults who are unable to consent to their care and accommodation needs, and that this report is referred to the Audit Committee for their consideration. Can I have a mover for those recommendations? Thank you, Russell. I'll second. I'm happy to second that. I will take silence as general agreement. There seems to be silence. I see no hands. I see no comments. In that case, the recommendations are accepted. Thank you. Right. Thank you for reminding me, Amy, on that. So we move on to item 6, which is the report of the Director of Corporate Resources, the first and second quarter scrutiny recommendation tracking 2024-25, unupdated committee forward work programme schedule 24-25. I think, Amy, you're taking us through this.
That's correct, Vice Chair, yes. So the committee will be familiar with this report that you receive on a quarterly basis. We've in Democratic have taken the decision to bring quarters 1 and 2 together for you because you received your last quarter 4 back in May. So there wasn't much to report for the quarter 1 on its own. So we've combined the 2 quarters for the committee. The appendices A and B list the previous recommendations of this committee. And I'm pleased to report that they're all currently marked as completed. for the committee's agreement, of course. And then at Appendix C to the report is this committee's forward work programme, which the committee will be aware is a rolling document, and that's being updated all the time by myself in collaboration with the chair of the committee. So I'm asking for the committee's permission to agree the status of the actions listed in Appendices A and B this evening, and also for the committee's permission to update the forward work programme onto the council's website so that the public can see the forward work programme for the committee. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the committee, please? I see no hands. I'd remind you that this committee actually owns this report and owns the forward work programme, and that any items on it or items that you may think ought to be on it, you can raise. If you think there's stuff on it that we don't need, you can raise that as well for consideration. Maybe to strike certain things off if you think that they're not helpful to the committee. This is something which is in our hands. Councillor Cave.
Thank you, Chair. I would just note, looking at the report, that there's quite a large number of slippages. Didn't quite count the number of times the word slippage came up, but it was considerable. And I do wonder how, as a committee, we're going to try and ensure that, you know, obviously the slippages are not always in our control, but we keep a mind or an eye on the slippages, and how we're going to try and retrieve some of the slippages that have already taken place.
Amy, do you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the term slippage is used throughout the document. However, that may be that it slipped from one month to another. So we're not talking for this committee any long-term slippages. That may be due to various reasons, either capacity within the service area in order to produce the report in the first instance, or it may be that the item is actually a reference from Cabinet or another committee, in which case, if it's delayed going to that committee in the first instance, we may receive that slightly late. But I would say that in terms of providing reports, this committee is excellent in terms of sticking to its annual forward work programme, making sure that reports are received within each municipal year. So we don't tend to have any slippage on a long-term basis that rolls on between municipal years. But obviously, most rolling reports will have a dedicated month. And if we're not able to provide it at that particular month, it is described as a slippage to the previous month when it is received.
Yeah, for example, I think with the election taking place earlier this year, that caused some necessary slippage to occur, which has a consequence down the road. But I mean, all the ones that were slipped then have been picked up since and have been supported. So I don't think that there's much in terms of slippage going forward. All the ones that have been slipped were picked up in the one slipped from July to September, for example. They've all been picked up the following month, from what I can see. So I think
Yes,
I think, as Amy says, we are on top of it.
Yes, Chair, just to reassure Councillor Cave that the forward work programme is regularly consulted upon with the chairman of the committee, especially in preparation for agenda conferences.
Yeah, I can confirm that we do go through it at agenda conferences. Unless there are any other comments or questions, then we come to item 7, which is any items which the chair has decided to raise under part 1. There are none as far as I'm aware, and there are no items under part 2, in which case, thank you all very much. This has been a very quick meeting for us. And Russell, Councillor Godfrey, you have your hand up. You're muted for some reason.
I'd just like to express my disappointment on this ruling that we need to be totally remote, because it shows tonight it's a little bit of a pass from the chairman that lives so close to the Civic Hall. If she would have been allowed to go there, she would have been able to chair the meeting. So I think it does need to be noted and looked at.
There is
If I
capacity.
may, Councillor Godfrey,
Go on,
just
Anne.
to clarify, the chair is actually out of area this evening and has done her very best in order to attend this evening.
Thank you, Amy.
I
Thank you,
do
Councillor
apologise.
Godfrey.
I didn't realise that. I didn't realise that.
Yeah, but there is capacity if I believe if there are communication problems and you do live close, you can nip in and get it sorted and connect through the civic offices network. But
That's
those
correct,
of us who
Chair,
live
yes.
those of us who live further away would find that more difficult. Okay, thank you very much then all. I see. I don't think there's any other business for us, so we can finish
Can
early.
sorry, Chair, just to
Amy.
check. Just to
The
check.
recommendation
can I-
again. The
Yes.
recommendations. The status of the actions listed in Appendix A and B. I've got them up here right in front of me, and I'm still ignoring them. That the status of the actions listed in Appendix A and B to the report be agreed, and the second recommendation that the updated forward work programme schedule for 24-25 attached to Appendix C be approved and uploaded to the Council's website. I see Councillor Lloyd Selby has a hand up. I assume that's the move.
Happy to move the recommendations. Thank you,
We have
Vice.
Councillor Norman's hand up. I assume that's the second.
I'll second, yes.
Thank you, Jane. In that case, we now do have finished our business for the day. And so everybody, thank you, officers. Thank you all committee members. Have a good evening.
Thank you,
Hello.
Chair.